Второй канал. Второй канал. Второй канал. Второй канал. На первый пускай Нет, на первый пускай.
Раз. Уважаемые участники форума, просим вас занять свои места. После начала пленарного заседания двери в зал будут заблокированы в связи с прямой трансляцией.
Все, вот вижу. Нет, я все вас вижу. На сцену смотрите, на сцену смотрите. Да, здесь вы сбросите. У вас там, да, кто-то с вами сидит рядом, нет? Не там, все, сейчас я
Уважаемые участники форума, мы просим вас занять свои места. Через несколько минут начнется пленарное заседание, и двери в зал будут заблокированы в связи с прямой трансляцией. Уважаемые участники форума, мы просим вас отключить свои сотовые
Dear
телефоны.
participants of the forum,
Пленарное
please
заседание.
switch off your mobile phones. The plenary session will begin in several minutes.
Уважаемые участники форума,
Dear participants of the forum, in 1 minute we're going to start the plenary session. We will have an online broadcasting, that is why the doors will be blocked and locked. Please switch off your mobile phones and take your seats.
Уважаемые участники, просьба занять свои места.
Dear participants, please take your seats.
Для приветствия от имени генерального секретаря
In order to
Организации сотрудничества Владимира Норова на сцену приглашается
participants on behalf
заместитель
of
генерального
SCO, we
секретаря ШОС
invite
Владимир Федорович Потапенко.
We invite Deputy Minister of General Secretary of Shanghai SCO Vladimir Norov and Mr. Vladimir Potapenko.
Добрый день.
Good day.
Я прибыл из Пекина.
I have come from Beijing because the Secretariat of SCO is in Beijing, although people think that it's in Shanghai. Dear participants of the 5th Forum of Small and Average Business of Forum of the SCO and BRICS regions. I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Republic of Bashkortostan and Government Committee on the Entrepreneurship and Tourism, Union of Industry and Trade of the Chamber of Industry and Trade of Republic of Bashkortostan, because they are supporting this event in this wonderful city of Ufa. In these years, Ufa has become a wonderful platform for developing of international cooperation, sharing of experience, and support of small and medium-sized business. Everybody has their own suggestions all the time, and they become the foundation of the cooperation with governmental entities. The program is very rich, and it meets the tendencies of the international markets and economy. This period can be characterized by the cooperation of development, changes, and geopolitical landscape is becoming more diverse. Global balance of forces is being redistributed due to creation of new centers of development in Asia. Cooperation and interdependency between the participants of the international cooperation is being developed, as well as economical globalization is being developed. And of course, the economical instability of the world, unfortunately, is remaining there due to forceful changes. But SCO is a platform for cooperation in the interests of creating polycentric
верховенство международного права, прежде всего Устава ООН, равную, совместную, неделимую, комплексную и устойчивую безопасность, реализации повестки дня устойчивого развития на период до 2030 года, уважение самостоятельного выбора народными пути своего политического, социально-экономического развития, обеспечение интересов всех каждого государства. ШОС нацелен на комплексное развитие торгово-экономического сотрудничества на основе обеспечения прозрачных, предсказуемых и стабильных условий для расширения экономической связи, укрепления политической коммуникации, продвижение стыковки инициатив регионального сотрудничества и стратегий в развитии национального развития сторон, увеличение объемов взаимной торговли и расширение инвестиционного сотрудничества в интересах роста благосостояния и повышения уровня жизни народов государств-членов ШОС. В перспективе ставится задача повысить глобальную конкурентоспособность и обеспечить цифровое преобразование национальных экономик государств-членов ШОС путем внедрения цифровых технологий и создания благоприятных условий для постепенного осуществления свободного передвижения товаров, капиталов, услуг и технологий. Планируется обеспечить рост и трансформацию национальных экономик путем разработки в рамках ШОС стабильных и транспарентных правил и процедур в области торговли и инвестиций,
stable and transparent rules and procedures by providing the digital trade, as well as simplifying the trade processes in the SCO regions and countries due to the agreement on simplifying them in the field of digitalization and mass media. SCO countries are going to be implementing these programs in the nearest time, using innovative technologies in the field of trade, investment, banks, finances, transport, logistics, industry, agriculture, energy, customs, innovations, informational technologies, development of remote and rural territories and city planning, interregional cooperation, tourism, ecology, education, and other interesting spheres. Dear participants of the forum, government participants of the SCO are going to be strengthening their cooperation and creating new environments for investment by strengthening the investment and business climate and supporting the development of all the regions and countries. This is the aim of the Program of International Cooperation of SCO countries. To conclude, I would like to wish you successful forum and all the best to the participants. Secretary General of SCO, Vladimir Norov. Thank you very much.
Для приветственного слова на сцену приглашается
We
специальный
welcome to the
представитель
stage
президента
special envoy for the President of the Russian Federation, Ambassador Bakhtiyor Hakimov.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, dear participants of the forum. You know, it's a great honor for me to speak with a welcoming speech at the forum, which, for me, personally, is becoming my home. It's not my first time here in Ufa. I remember 5 years ago, within the frameworks of the BRICS and the SCO summit in Ufa, an idea appeared to establish a mechanism of the Forum for Small and Medium-Sized Businesses. This idea was expressed by the head of the Republic, Mr. Hamidov, and today it's the 5th time we meet here. I paid attention on the active involvement of all the participants since the morning. All the halls were full. Discussion was very active and intensive, and I believe that it will lead to very fruitful results. Ufa Forum is one of the leading events within the presidency of Russia in the SCO. SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as it was said in the welcoming speech by the Secretary General, today is recognized as one of the leading elements of the forming world order. Our organization is reliable, predictable partner for all the world. Today, SCO includes 8 member states, 4 observer states, and 6 partners in dialogue. And this SCO space today, if we think about that figures, unites almost 50% of the population of the Earth. This is the territory where 1/4 of the GDP is produced. Such a strong potential allows us to give a special content to our cooperation in all the spheres of this cooperation, considering the particular specifics of SCO. Establishing one of the key areas is still safety provision. Within the framework of our presidency, we are led by the priorities determined by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. These are the tasks set, and to achieve this task, to fulfill them, we have more than 90% of the events which are taking place now in many cities of Russia, and this meeting is one of the key steps towards our future cooperation, our work. Among our priorities from the point of view of policy is further consolidation of the SCO. It's important to facilitate improvement of strengthening the role of organization in the international affairs. There will be special emphasis on fight contra terrorism, drug traffic, in the violations in the information sphere. Russian Federation supports building of interparliamentary dimension in the SCO. Among our priorities, there is economy. Today, in the city of Tashkent, there is a meeting of ministers of foreign affairs and foreign economic affairs. On the threshold, at the meeting of the Commission of the Senior Management, a draft of new program of economical cooperation was agreed. This draft document is focused on development of small and medium-sized businesses. Ministry of Finance of Russia supports our intention to write a roadmap on the increasing of national currency in mutual transactions. We pay much attention to infrastructure, transport and logistics, digital industries and other industries as well. We need to solve our common tasks in order to develop fruitful cooperation and interaction in these spheres. Among our priority events, which are scheduled within the framework of the Russian presidency, there is 75th anniversary of the Great Patriotic War victory. Heads of the BRICS and the SCOs and other organizations have already received invitations of the President of the Russian Federation to take part in the events, in the official events on the 8th and 9th of May. There are other concepts and ideas, and we believe that these events will unite all the former republics of the Soviet Union, all the partner states, all those who recognize the contribution of our country to the great victory over Nazism. Distinguished colleagues, dear friends, I am convinced that our common efforts, our joint efforts, will allow us to solve all the problems that we face, and the results of this forum will become a very serious, very strong contribution to the presidency of Russia in the SCO and the BRICS organization. I wish you the best of success. And all the fans of UFA football team, my congratulations to the victory in the football cup. Thank you very much.
Для участия в пленарном заседании на сцену приглашаются.
I would like to give the floor the acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Bashkortostan, Andrei Nazarov.
Уполномоченный при президенте Российской Федерации по защите прав предпринимателей Борис Титов.
Mr. Boris Titov, Commissioner for Entrepreneurs' Rights at the President of the Russian Federation. Mr. Vadim Zhivulin, Deputy Minister of Economic Development of the Russian Federation. Mr. Muhammad Iqbal Tahim, Secretary General of the Federation of Pakistan Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Sergei Katirin, President of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the Russian Federation. Mr. Alexei Repik, President of the All Russia Public Organization Business Russia. Luis Eduardo Melin, ex-head of the National Bank of Economic Development of Brazil. Moderator of today's meeting, journalist, businesswoman, public figure, columnist for Forbes magazine, founder and CEO of Go Fly Service, Ms. Joresa Blount.
Hello, thank you. That's how it works. My name is Joresa Blount, and I am so excited to be here. This is my first time in Russia. It is absolutely beautiful. The people, the culture, it's just beautiful. I came all the way from Los Angeles, California, to have this very important conversation about small and medium-sized businesses and how entrepreneurship is touching all parts of the world, including UFA. So I do want to say that I am part of the Western world, but I definitely see here how the Western and Eastern cultures are intertwining. It's a really beautiful thing, and I really feel the heart of Eurasia right here. So I could go on, but I'm not going to talk to you, not to death, about Los Angeles and the sunshine that I'm missing right now. We're going to have this amazing conversation. And I'm very excited to talk about a few things that have developed in the last 2 weeks, including implementation by the head of Republic of Bashkortostan, Radi Kabirov, the first 5-year development plan. Hopefully you are aware of this. It seems to be something that is really going to change the atmosphere and touch entrepreneurship in a way and over the next 5 years. There are some key directions that this 5-year development plan is supposed to touch on, which is human potential, comfortable living environment, economic growth, investments, and infrastructure. The Republic intends to join the top 5 in the National Investment Development Rating. Small and medium-sized enterprises are really the heart of this plan. So I would like to go ahead and start this conversation by giving the acting Prime Minister, Mr. Nazarov, the floor to really talk to us about a little bit more about this economic development and what we can expect to see over the next 5 years. Mr. Nazarov.
Thank you very much for agreeing to moderate the plenary session of the 5th Forum of SCO and BRICS countries on small and medium-sized businesses. We had to choose from various journalists, politicians, and people who could moderate this, but we have chosen you because a person who lives in absolutely other environment, as you have mentioned yourself, where matters which are going to be discussed here are seen from a different perspective. And being a person who is writing articles for Forbes about successful people and projects could be most suitable for us to be impartial at discussing how to develop cooperation between our countries of SCO and BRICS countries, but also to support and develop small and average business. I would like to mention that Bashkortostan is pretty lucky, because after the first SCO and BRICS forum, with the participation of presidents of SCO and BRICS countries' presidents, it has been decided that this forum is going to be held here in Bashkortostan, in Ufa. And this is a business card of our region indeed. And it's a great pleasure for us that about 2,800 participants have joined us here from 52 subjects of Russian Federation and from many countries of the world. Thank you very much for joining us here. The moderator has mentioned that today Bashkortostan is stepping up to the new stage of the development. And many people here in this hall know what is Bashkortostan. And I would like to say that Bashkortostan is a region which is pretty peculiar, and it's different from most entities of Russian Federation. First of all, 143 square kilometers of Bashkortostan is actually a bigger territory than lots of other countries, even like, for example, Switzerland or Greece or Georgia. Bashkortostan takes the first place on producing the petroleum for cars, second place for oil processing, third place on extracting oil. We have many enterprises which are extracting the oil from the earth, and I believe that the potential of the Republic is huge. But starting from the moment when Mr. Putin has suggested to Mr. Khabirov to start working here as an acting head of the Republic, and now that he has become the head of the Republic, it's going to create a new vector for the development of the Republic. We have called it the first 5-year development plans. We are sure that we will have other development plans, but it's going to create a stimulus to take Bashkortostan to the next level. If right now we are in the top 10 place among other regions, we believe that we will be able to be in the top 5 of the regions and entities of Russian Federation. And Mr. Khabirov has signed the decree which is going to lead us from the economy of consumption to the economy of development. And of course it is very important for us to develop the social support and provision of people who are living here in the Republic. But if we are going to be working only in this field, if we are going to invest only into this field, then we won't have a chance for development in the future, because we won't have any income. That is why half of the fields and directions of our work, which has been taken up by the Republic of Bashkortostan, is going to be in the field of economy. The development of economy, the development of business, support of small and average-sized business. And we can see a lot of work that is going to be taken here. So, small and medium-sized business are not developed enough right now, because they are mobile, they are flexible. It's not a big investor, but these are the companies which are creating the living environment around them. They are working in this sphere, in these regions, and they have children here, their families here. That is why it's the field which has to be developed. Because people who are living here, who want to start doing entrepreneurship, we want these people to have more support and protection. That is why we are creating additional instruments of support in Republic of Bashkortostan. We had the Institute of Support of the Rights of the Entrepreneurs. And right now we have all the administrations which have the deputies, they are so-called business sheriffs. We have been discussing it with different colleagues. Yes, sheriff is a police officer actually, but really, it is important for us to move on. That is why business sheriff is really a vibrant name. So this person is going to be protecting entrepreneurs. But of course, he is not going to be working as a commissioner, because business sheriff is distributing the tasks. He is vice administrator of the city, and he has his own competences with his own ways of supporting the entrepreneurs. And we also would like our region to gain additional opportunities in the field of education, in the field of creating high-end institutes of education. So Russia has the program of scientific and educational centers, and we are creating unique Eurasian scientific and educational center, and we are hoping that it's going to be capable of teaching our students as well as all the Eurasian students, including the students from SCO countries. We are preparing programs, and these programs have been included into the decree of Mr. Khabirov. We have initiated the signing of the Charter on Protection of Business. Within the framework of the Forum, they will going to provide new sources of protection. And we're hoping that Bashkortostan is going to be one of the drivers of this direction. And we are really hoping that we'll have the conclusion of the agreement between the organization of the regions of SCO and BRICS countries. And we hope that Bashkortostan is going to become the chairman, the first chairman of this association. This will give a chance to share our experience. And I would like to say that there is always competition for investment between the regions and entities of Russian Federation, between countries, but there is a particular field where there is no competition, where we have a great chance to cooperate, to work together. This is the field of support of small and medium-sized business, because it works here. And the more support we give to them, the more we help them to work outside our investment, the more feedback we get. That is why we have the Forum of SCO and BRICS on small and medium-sized business. And I believe that the results of this forum are going to be even more support for the entrepreneurs, for the citizens who would like to become entrepreneurs. And I'm really grateful to all the speakers who have accepted our invitation to participate in the forum and the plenary session. And I'm sure that everyone will have the most fruitful results here. Thank you very much.
My next question is for Mr. Juvelin. Can you tell us, how does the SCO and BRIC countries, how will they provide support to these small and medium-sized businesses, and is there an opportunity to create a committee?
С большим удовольствием поделюсь мнением, но
It's a pleasure for me to share my opinion, but first of all I would like to welcome everybody. Good afternoon, Ufa, good afternoon, Bashkortostan, dear friends, dear colleagues from BRICS and SCO countries. It's a great event which we have the honor to take part in and to share our ideas together with you, which should be the great basis, the great foundation for continuing cooperation in the sphere of development of small and medium-sized business. Small and medium-sized business today, globally, does not mean only companies which produce billions of rubles and dollars, but these are billions of people who are manufacturing a lot of goods, a lot of work, services, which we consume every day. Medium and small-sized businesses in our country today become a very strong, a very reliable platform for development of our country. Imagine over 6 million of companies in our country work in the sphere of the small and medium-sized business. About 19 million people are involved, are employed in the sphere of small and medium-sized business. If we talk about Bashkortostan, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Nazarov, 400,000 people are involved in this sector. And in this regard, we can only imagine how many people, residents of our country, are engaged in this sector, in this segment. That is why we are obliged to provide small and medium-sized business with the best conditions for the fastest growth. To be honest with you, it's not just wording, but we have to do our best in order to increase the number of companies involved in the sphere of medium and small-sized businesses. And I'm happy to say that development of small and medium-sized business is declared by the decree of the President one of the national priorities, along with those which shall be achieved in other areas, healthcare, education, etc. Small and medium-sized businesses is one of the national ideas which we shall join all together, and we shall do our best. We shall invest all the efforts in order to develop this segment. Probably our colleagues from SCO and BRICS countries could help us with that, and we could share our expertise, our experience. This is the subject of discussion at today's forum. It's great that the 5th anniversary forum continues to discuss this agenda, and today we have what to share. We have what to tell our colleagues from BRICS and SCO countries about. First of all, it's great that our cooperation becomes stronger every year. It is more fruitful, it is more successful. As on 2018, the trade turnover with the 5 countries is 20% larger than the previous results. About 40% is the growth of Russian export. Import grew by 7%, etc. These are just the figures, these are just the indicators, but the key important factor is that these indicators mean the growth of number of products in monetary and in commercial meaning. There are a number of areas where we can work together in the nearest future, and we can increase our revenue. First of all, digitalization, cooperation and participation of the trade turnover is much more simple due to digital technologies. It will be great if we could discuss establishment of a portal or a digital platform where the entrepreneurs could share their business contacts and could interact and cooperate on many issues related with business activities in our countries. I'm confident that this issue could also be considered, and there is opportunity for further cooperation. Another area is export of SMEs, of small and medium-sized enterprises. We can see that the production, the manufacturing level grows. It will be great that the exportation level will also grow. Another important area for cooperation and ties between our states is exchange of experience on how to support SMEs efficiently. I have mentioned the national project and national priorities today. Within the framework of these projects, there is a wide list, there is a long list of measures on support of SMEs, starting from incentives, education, infrastructure support, advisory, technological support. A lot of events and a lot of means exist today in order to facilitate small and medium-sized businesses. It will be great if our positive experience, which we have accumulated during these years, will be transferred to our friends and colleagues. We can tell how these measures are being implemented, and we would be happy to learn about the measures of support which exist in the BRICS and the SCO countries. That would probably be the coordination, cooperation, joint achievement of our objectives and movement towards results is deemed to be successful. That is why I would like to wish our countries to cooperate as close as we do. I would like to hope, actually I would be confident that SMEs have very good defenders and partners in all the issues of development, and all of you who are involved in all this, in this sphere, I wish the best of success.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mellon, my question for you, for the SCO and BRICS regions, what is the current financial and economic component of cooperation? And what changes can we expect?
First of all,
Прежде всего, first of all, I would
government of Bashkortostan and the government of the Russian Federation for the kind invitation to be here. And I think it's this subject that brings us here today is absolutely central because, as it was just mentioned, small and medium enterprises, small and medium companies are all about people, about generating jobs. And just the way infrastructure is an engine that produces productivity, that generates productivity, small and medium enterprises are an engine to generate jobs. So this is a key issue. So we should all be concerned with that. And from the experience of my country, I would say that finance, the availability of credit, is absolutely central for the survival, the expansion and growth of small and medium enterprises. It's often very hard for small businesses, especially those that are starting, to get access to adequate finance. Adequate finance, I mean finance that gives them the funds that they need without imposing a cost that is so heavy that they cannot get their businesses off the ground, they cannot get them started. So adequate finance is very often provided by a number of incentive mechanisms. And public credit, public financial institutions, public banks, development banks have a very important role to play. And I'm very concerned that today there is, in the world at large, there is a very clear trend, which I particularly consider a negative one, of speaking about finance for development as being entirely the province of private finance, of saying that public finance should not be involved. And this is especially true for the new policies, the new approaches that are being adopted by the World Bank. But I'll come back to that in a minute. I'd like to just give you one example, a very concrete example of how public finance, how development agencies, public development agencies can help small and medium enterprises. I have here with me a very small card, just like an ordinary credit card. But this is not an ordinary credit card because it was issued by the Brazilian Development Bank to operate in the following basis. You have a list, a very large list of pre-approved products that are entitled to be supported, that are entitled to financial support. And if you are a small business, you can register your product with the development bank and you have an automatic line of credit for your consumers to acquire those products. This is, of course, if we're talking about small and medium enterprises, we're talking about quantity. And so, of course, one single government entity cannot be present everywhere. So you've got to do this via the network of private banks agencies. But the funding and the rules are basically set by the government body, the Government Development Bank. Just to give you two figures on how this evolved in Brazil. In 10 years, from 2004 to 2014, we came from 23,000 small businesses registered to receive support to 788,000 businesses, small enterprises. This is 3,000% growth or more. And it's also the same in terms of the volume of business. It's even more. We came from something around in local currency, something around 75 million in local currency in 10 years to over 10 billion in terms of disbursements. So you can see again that this is an incredible leap. And it doesn't take so long. It took in a decade, you can have the groundwork done and you can have concrete results. But what is concerning me right now is that even though we had in our region, for instance, a lot of experience with integrating local economies, regional economic integration, and working with small and medium enterprises as part of value chains or production chains in the region, providing them with credit and incentives, removing regulatory barriers, also providing mechanisms for payment so that they wouldn't have the costs of transaction that exchange rate and contracts usually mean, and that are very heavy for small and medium businesses. So there's a number of instruments that can be creatively put forward in order to facilitate small businesses to have an interplay across the border in the same region. However, what we have been listening in the last few years from the World Bank, I'm afraid, is just more of the same rhetoric that we had before. We have this the whole idea of the so-called plan for maximizing finance for development, the MFD, which is basically just a series of measures to exclude public finance from helping development funds. It's basically a way of saying that national and regional development banks, like the NDB that's been created by the BRICS countries, that funds like the Far East Development Fund that have been set up by countries in the region, they should play no part, that all could be done by private finance, and that public money should only be used to decrease the level of risk of private banks. We have a long history of actual figures that shows us that this doesn't work. If you just work to increase and bloat the size of the securities and derivative markets, if you just increase the size of private finance under the aegis of deregulation, complete deregulation, if you increase the freedom of flows of capital across the world, well, it's not a surprise. If you do that again, you're going to have the same result that took us to the crisis in 2008, 2009, to the Great Recession that spread through all the sectors of the economy, through all the countries, especially in the West. So this is something that economists, decision makers, government officials, and of course the associations that represent small and medium businesses should be very attentive to, because there is this so-called consensus that is coming once more from our friends at the World Bank, just saying that we have this cascade approach, that you just use the public money as a guarantee to reduce the risk of the private banks. It's basically the same thing that they did before, only this time when the bubble bursts, it's going to be, again, the governments that foot the bill. This is not the way it really to produce results, especially for small businesses, which need rationale, which need a logic for supporting their development. There is not this aggressive logic of having derivative-based finance. I am completely at your disposal to discuss the experience. I've been in the Brazilian government for 13 years as the managing director for the National Brazilian Development Bank, which was then the third largest development bank in the world. The first is China Development Bank, the second is KfW in Germany, and the third was BNDES in Brazil. And I was the Deputy Minister of Finance for 6 years as well. We have a wealth of experience in regional integration and new mechanisms that can be deployed, but only if we rid ourselves of this World Bank vision, this Washington-based vision, that all you have to do is exclude public finance, decrease the presence of the public sector, deregulate all the financial markets, that immediately development in general and the growth of small and medium companies will come automatically. That is not true. History proves it's not true, and it doesn't work. So I'm at your disposal later on to discuss the particulars of our experience in Latin America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mellon, if I could just follow up with a question. I think it's amazing to be able to open up the doors to finance for small and medium-sized business owners. What I also find, though, that it's not just giving them money, but also educating them how to run their business. Is that also part of your program? When you decide that you're going to offer money to a new business owner, what is the education part of it?
We have found that the mortality risk in small and business companies is very high. So here we have a very harsh environment where if you are not managing your financial life properly as a small and medium company, you will go under very fast. So of course it is important to have financial education, but the proposal the approach we used is not one of throwing money at the companies themselves. It's facilitating their business so that if they are found to be efficient by the market, if they have a good product, if they offer a good service, then their buyers will be funded, will have conditions, easy conditions to acquire these services and these products. So I think that, of course, there are many levels at which government institutions can help with small and medium companies, but I have to say that from our experience, the financial approach is the key one.
Thank you.
Я очень кратко хочу поделиться нашим опытом.
I would briefly share our experience. We have educated dozens of thousands of entrepreneurs last year, and it was a successful program. In this area, we suggest our colleagues from Brazil to support our initiative, to adopt our initiative, not only provide incentive loans, incentive financing, but also to increase education level. Bashkortostan can also invite Brazilian businessmen and pay for their education. So we invite you, please come and study here.
Mr. Repik, I have a question for you. How can entrepreneurs and small businesses stand out and survive with the uniform regulations which increase the competitiveness amongst entrepreneurs?
Добрый день.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for an invitation to be a panelist on a plenary session. I believe that this is the place where the new economic landscape is being established, because the epoch of business giants is passing away. Obviously, that for a long time these economic giants will have an influence on our economies, on our lives. Mr. Nazarov gave an example of petrochemical companies of the Republic of Bashkortostan, and we all understand that this is the industry where economy of a large scale is still, let's say, dominating, especially in this sphere of competitiveness. At the same time, in the long-term and short-term perspective, the growth of global economy is related with entrepreneurship, with the companies which during their cycle have periods of being a small enterprise, medium-sized enterprise. Some of them find enough resources, enough potential to scale up their potential and to become giants. But for the global economy, the most efficient thing is that the companies maintain their personification, their individual specific features, and they make our lives, lives of consumers, more comfortable, more interesting, and full of new products and solutions. In general, I would like to mention that all customization, everything related with new technologies, new markets, is much better and more efficient because it appears only in small and medium-sized businesses and companies. These companies do not grow from top to bottom, only vice versa. If we analyze the history of humanity, all evolution of our development is somehow related with a very simple process. Long ago, our predecessors were hunting, were making clothes, were cooking, were producing all the means of production. Was it effective? It was not. It was natural economy, and then the economy became monetary. This meant increasing of life expectancy, life quality, and economic growth. For the humanity, it was a huge leap to the new epoch, to the new stage. We need to understand, we need to realize that specialization is something that has formed all the successes of humanity, both economic and quality of life. Specialization is a sphere, is a niche where an enterprise, SMEs, can find their protection, can be protected against competitiveness, even after unification of regulation basis. They can find their loyal group of consumers, their friends, their supporters. At the same time, we all understand that every specialization is successful only under condition when there is another column, another pylon supporting it. It's cooperation. The more specialized you are, the more important trust is becoming for you in order to form the chain of supply of components, for example, establishment of added value together with such specialized companies as you are, companies inside your country, very often in other regions of your own country, and foreign companies. And in order to achieve that, we have this multilateral formats of cooperation, such successful as the SCOs, BRICS. That is why we have to focus and we have to adjust our work on cooperation not only on the level of big, beautiful events, but also on the level of cooperation of companies between themselves. That is why I'm here, and I believe that many of you are here to achieve the same goal. Should we discuss the joint mechanisms of support actively today? Yes, of course. The answer is yes, it's obviously. Because under conditions of lack of venturing funding, public financial markets are not developed to the necessary extent, including in the SEO and BRICS countries. We have to realize that without active involvement of institutions of development, both interstate and governmental, it will not be an easy process. And we know that BRICS countries has a set of examples of best practices when small and medium-sized businesses cooperated, joined on the basis of the platforms of development in India, for example. First of all, the IT sector, IT industry in Brazil. I've been to Brazil many times, and I know the formats of support facilitating that Mr. Mellon offered to the Brazilian MSB, and my colleague Mr. Zhivulin, Mr. Katyrin, work together in our institution of support, cooperation of development of SMEs in Russia. I believe that Russia has a large set of both financial and non-financial technologies in order to facilitate and to take all the advantage of the potential of the enterprises, especially of those emerging in the small and medium-sized business sector. Today I'm confident that we have the 5th anniversary forum today. This is the time when our quality of our dialogue, level of our interaction transforms into quantity, into tools which have been discussed here, which are applied more and more times by many companies. There are conglomerates, chains, and associations of companies. This is why we're here. Survival, as the question was asked, survival of the enterprises depends on their strong points, how they can be developed using cooperation with specialized partners, with the companies very similar to them in their own regions, in other countries. You should not be afraid of that. And another comment to Mr. Mellon's presentation. Who can help support private institutions, governmental institutions? The answer cannot be just very simple. It's related with the fact that the government probably, due to its scale, it's the most inefficient cooperation. It's too big structure. The structure is too big, and financing, direct financing of the government without private sectors very often leads to the problems which the entrepreneurs face, and they do not want to face these problems. Unfortunately, the level of tolerance to mistakes of the government is very low. They do not tolerate any mistakes. Leaders of our countries and administrative offices, the systems, should change their approach to ventures, to development, to mistake made. I believe that without the change of this approach, we will not be able to develop institutions of financing of small or medium-sized business. It's just impossible. In this part, I would like to emphasize once again that active involvement of banking and financial institutions in the scheme, to a certain extent, allows us to mitigate the risks of the fact that the business and government speak different languages. At the same time, that does not mean that the solution offered by the World Bank is the unique one, is the only one. This means that our system of state support of business, our system of interstate, intergovernmental support of business should become more focused on business, but not focused on bureaucracy. That is the idea we should think about today, I believe. Alexei, I would like to add that I'm a public officer for 3 weeks. We all speak same language. Unfortunately, exceptions just confirm the rules. That is why let's us create more exceptions. They will become a rule.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Tito. How are economic and legal reforms in Russia helping the economy and making conditions more comfortable for businesses?
Thank you very much, Teresa. Yes, indeed, our Institute of Business supporters has been working in the fields where the problems already exist, when the tension has already arisen between the government and the enterprise, and we are protecting the rights and freedoms. Unfortunately, they also have to be protected, the freedoms have to be protected, and the interests of business as well. I have to say that during all this time, we had so many applications for our support, and we were systemizing all these problems, and we have seen some main and fundamental, essential problems which have to be solved. And I would like to say that our institution, I'm not talking about our own institution in Russia only, but also about institutions which exist in different countries, for example, SCO countries. I would like to say that we are learning from each other, and we are solving these problems by which we are helping each other as well. So, for example, the prosecution of business. We all see that this problem exists on the post-Soviet field, and it's the remainder of the ideology which didn't support the development of business, which simply didn't accept the whole institution of entrepreneurship. That is why, on the territory of post-Soviet countries, it's a problem which concerns us. But I believe that many countries in the world should envy the Article 108 of the Code of Russian Federation, which has been accepted in the set of laws, according to which the entrepreneurs in Russia cannot be arrested, and they shouldn't be prosecuted, and they shouldn't be incarcerated. This is a great advantage of our legislation, and Delovaya Russia was working very hard on this, and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been working very hard on this. And I would like to say that right now it's not too often that we hear something positive about it, because unfortunately we still have problems about how this article is being used, but it's a great advantage, and it's a great deed that has been done by our country. And I would like to say that in this field we are learning from our Kazakh colleagues, because the reform that has been held in Kazakhstan in this field has led to a rapid decrease of criminal cases in this field, and it reconstructed the legal system, and they have introduced special body which has been taking care of these matters. And this is a breakthrough in Kazakhstan, but we haven't gained it as well, but we are working to be able to do that as well. And another field is the field of regulation, administrative regulation, Mr. Blunt has been saying that this is one of the primary fields, and this is. But I would like to say that Russia is on the verge of changes. We all know that. So this we call it the regulatory guillotine. So, and we are going to cut off all the extensive regulation which are being used by our regulatory bodies. 2 millions. So approximately 2 millions of demands and requirements. So we don't have any just set list of these requirements, but in any case it's about 2 million, so and they are going to decrease rapidly. So and the experience of our Kazakh friends shows that it is possible because they had so many regulations and requirements, and right now they have decreased down to about 30. So and these are the demands to the business. Well, I'm sorry, I was talking about 3 dozens of thousands here, yes. So I have heard about very interesting experience from my Uzbekistan colleague. He has told me that they had this regulatory decision that all the inspections are going to be approved by Institute of the commissioners. So we can discuss it on and on, and unfortunately, so well, not unfortunately, but I believe that we are capable of doing this work with all the governmental bodies that we have, but this is a leak in the system, so to say, of the scheduled and non-scheduled inspections. So the so-called quasi-inspections, some investigations, monitoring, and they are increasing the whole demand for this system. So I would like to say that we in our institution, we are doing the research which is called the Index of an Administrative Pressure on Business. We have the statistics on regions and the types of regulations and inspections. So all the statistics on 4 criteria. So we are assessing the seriousness of this tension and pressure. I believe that it's very important for both the business and government, because they are studying them in the regional administration in Bashkortostan as well. And I believe that it's very important for our colleagues as well to see the picture, the big picture of this whole pressure, where it is being done and how it is being done. And to conclude, I would like to say that in order for business to develop, we also need to have good credit policy, economical policy. We have good taxing policy in regard of business. Business has to be beneficial when it works. Everything has to be safe, everything has to be comfortable, but also beneficial. We see that we have reserves for changes. It concerns taxes, but you know that taxes in Russia, so small business has really comfortable conditions for business, for small business. We are one of the leading countries in this field, in the field of taxation for small business. We have a new taxation for self-employed, for entrepreneurs, and the tax of 6% for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Well, there is an idea that this tax has to be cancelled, but so we think that it's a little bit premature. But we are still discussing it, how simplified tax system should be modernized. But I would like to say that we need good percentages and rates without access to cheap credits, because economics cannot develop without small business. And without the tariffs, well, we have a new law on tariffs. So it's being criticized a little bit by our government, and we have suggested an alternative law of setting the tariffs in the Russian Federation. And we are really hoping that it's going to be considered. So we are working constantly in the fields of changing the legislation. And the absolutely final point, I do not agree with Mr. Nazarov, who has been saying that Jereza from California is looking at us from a different point of view or something like this. We are all in one and the same environment. This space is called global economy, global market economy. Every small entrepreneur opening his barber shop or coffee shop has to understand that he is in the system of global economy. And we are working for this. We are working for excluding the barriers to creating free entrepreneurship for market economy. So we are unified by this. Thank you very much. I wanted to add. So Mr. Titov doesn't agree with me on something. Yes, I believe that this field is very important to develop business, especially if we're talking about small and medium business, which do not have legal teams, the teams of lawyers which could defend them against this pressure. So, and small and medium business are subject to this pressure. And to prove what has been told by Mr. Titov, I would like to say that in 10 years Russian Federation has changed the legislation radically, drastically. To summarize everything, so incarceration is twice as low as it's been 10 years ago. Less than 600,000 people are incarcerated right now. It also involves the entrepreneurs. 360 articles of the criminal law have the alternative penalties for breaking the law, for people not to get incarcerated in this regard. I would like to point out that the people who have been taking part in these processes understand this pretty well. We have standards in Bashkortostan, standard of safe entrepreneurship in Bashkortostan, and I really believe that if we're talking about the comfortable conditions for business, is going to be on the first place within 5 years. I promise you that.
I beg your pardon, dear Mr. Nazarov. I agree with you. On the one hand, yes, I agree. And if we ask the representatives of business how comfortable, what do they feel about these circumstances, I believe that the only optimistic people will be you and me. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, Mr. Zhivulin and the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation declared that the economic development, which is being mentioned for 10 probably years, is still the principal menace of Russian investment climate, including for those entrepreneurs who are about to decide, shall they move forward, shall they start, or shall they sit and wait? That is why I believe that today the Commissioner, Mr. Titov, said a very good thing. Regulations are improved, but the law enforcement is behind it dramatically. And our job is to give an additional impetus to our regulators in order to make their efforts compliant with the decree of the President of the Russian Federation, more freedom to Russian business, to make our economy more competitive. I know that there are similar problems always on the agenda. They are being discussed for a long time in the BRICS and the SCO countries. In general, we shall clearly understand, and I agree once again with the Commissioner, Mr. Titov, that the freedom barrierless global international format, cooperation and competitiveness will make our job easier and safer.
Thank you.
Алексей Евгеньевич,
You do not share optimism, and I don't like this idea. If we are not optimistic, if we do not believe in the result, it will be more and more complicated for us to do our job. But I know that, unfortunately, the businessmen face many things which are difficult for them. But let us be optimistic and realistic at the same time. There are no more optimistic people than businessmen, because we can torture them, and they still will grow.
We
are brave to the stupidity. Where brave is similar equal to stupidity. We need a medal, we need a golden medal. Yesterday we were talking about entrepreneurship. I will not talk about that now, I will tell later. Actually, I noticed a very weird dependence. The richer the person is, because we know the Forbes list, the less optimistic these people are. It's very difficult to maintain your wealth.
I think that's our cue to move on. Mr. Katerin, you as the Chief of Business Council for the SCO and BRIC countries, what are some of the prospects of, or for increasing the share of business in interregional and international trade?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, I'm entrusted to become the chairman of the Business Council of BRICS and SCO countries. All the discussion about BRICS and SCO's problem, about our agenda, if somehow we move it to Brazil, to Kazakhstan, to Uzbekistan, it will be the same everywhere. We will talk about the same things: administrative pressure, lack of finance, lack of human resources, everything that we have. I agree with my colleague, we go internationally, and I have conversation with our colleagues who are not related with BRICS and the SCO, and they say that they have the same problems that we do. They do not have access to finance, they do not have access to human resources, they do not have enough high-skilled employees. The problems are always the same. Regarding BRICS and the SCOs, what cooperation within our organization means for us? There were some statistics. We have $145 billion of trade turnover with BRICS and SCOs countries. The growth was more than 20%. In 2018, 125 with BRICS countries. The growth was 21 and 22%, which means that out of $688 billion, which was our foreign trade turnover, BRICS and SCOs countries are a very serious segment of our economy, but the figures do not as important as the growth rate, especially in the foreign market. These countries are reliable partners, and we are actively moving forward together. The problems which are being discussed and which are being solved at the BRICS and the SCO Council, they are very similar to the things which we are discussing today. What's important for business? Believe me, on one of the first meetings of the Business Council of BRICS, I will not tell you the country, we gathered together one of the delegations, I will not mention the country. The delegation was late, and they said that it was quite possible that we wouldn't get visas to your country. And one of the first questions was, when you're talking about development of business together, about moving towards each other, we need to solve the very simple questions. The first question to our head of states: visa-free regime, or multi-visas, Today we do not have this problem anymore, but this is where we started. Financial services for business. We cannot talk about cooperation if we cannot pay each other, we cannot finish our transactions. This is the topic which is being discussed constantly. Should there be national currency or the banks which are under sanctions, which are afraid of sanctions? It's logistics. All the things which are related with business activities and solutions for the issues, for the concrete issues which we have is our main task. If we are talking about the SEO, I believe that everybody knows that initially it was an association aimed at safety space, safety of the border, fight against terrorism, drug traffic, etc. And only later the second priority was economic development. But I believe that today economical development prevails in all the discussions, not only in business communities, but at the highest level, among the presidents and the ministries of the countries. In BRICS, the association was based on different things. The economic agenda was in the very beginning. It was initial. It was the foundation. And the working groups cannot solve all the issues. They can elaborate a list of proposals which shall be submitted to the heads of states, which gather every year. And 5 years ago, UFA hosted this event, and since that the key report with the principal problems for business is being repeated annually. If we talk about small and medium-sized business, first of all, it's a pleasure for me to remember that 5 years ago this idea was first declared in the Chamber of Commerce and Trade of Bashkortostan. It was supported by everybody. If you check all the schedules of BRICS and the SEO forums, this forum are also mentioned in all the documents. This event is very significant, and it is scheduled in every country. The forum of BRICS and the SEO countries are also held in Khanty-Mansiysk, in the city of Khanty-Mansiysk. These are two major events within the frameworks of BRICS and the SEO held on the territory of the Russian Federation. All our colleagues schedule these forums for every year. We have different criteria for estimation SMEs. We say that we have only 21–22% of GDP, and in China they have 60%. In Uzbekistan they have 53%. In India they have 45%. Nobody says that our criteria of assessment is different. In China, for example, you know, the size of a medium-sized business, 15 employees is a micro business, etc. In transportation industry, for example, there can be 2,000 people employed, logistics company, service company, 300 people employed. It depends. That is why criteria of assessment is different. In India, we evaluate the company based on the volume of investment. Depending on investment, it will be either small or medium-sized business, etc. I will not list all the countries. That's interesting for those who would like to learn more about that. If we compare the obvious things, not everything is so good as we would like it to be, but not everything is so negative. If we compare the statistics, in this part we are very different. What makes us similar? The BRICS and the SEO countries pay huge attention to this segment of economy, small and medium-sized business. This is priority for all the governments of our countries. The programs supervised by the governments of the countries have a very different set of different tools, but all of the programs are aimed at support of small and medium-sized business. Some countries pay more attention to women business, family enterprises, youth entrepreneurship, but every country has programs aimed at development and support of small and medium-sized businesses. And forums such as our forum provides an opportunity to talk about the most interesting things in our country, in other countries. We have mentioned that we have a number of tools. Many of them are efficient, many of them are not so efficient, because very often we talk that we have many institutions of development. And its efficiency, its productivity, its return of investment, they are very different. When Ms. Golikova, the minister, mentioned 35 institutions of development, we calculated and we had enough fingers of our hands to list all the effective institutions. What the rest of them are doing, nobody knows. We have an opportunity to share our tools with our colleagues, but we also need to learn how to evaluate efficiency on the federal level, first of all. That is why we, together with our colleagues, always say that we need to assess the efficiency. Maybe we do not need so many institutions. We need some of them, but more efficient. In this regard, we need to work harder together with our colleagues and to analyze the institutions that they have, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and what is the further development path. Great platform. Today, the first forum gathered 500 people, and now we have 3,000 of participants, which proves the growth. The agenda in comparison with the first forum is also dramatically different. Other platforms, other discussions, other topics of the agenda, family business, IT technologies. I believe that, I hope that this platform will develop. We will invest all the efforts to facilitate that process. All the colleagues who work together with us within the frameworks of the SCO and BRICS, we all know that we need to work harder. We need to find solutions for problems together in order to create our joint businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohammed Iqbal Tahim, my question for you, what are ways you are developing economic cooperation between Pakistan and other countries?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be on this forum where we are witnessing a great idea of bringing the medium-sized businesses together, because medium-sized businesses are millions in number and they are backbone of any economy, of any country, and to bring them together, to interact them, for them to interact individually, it is very difficult. So I think the SCO is doing a great job in this lovely city of Ufa. I congratulate the organizers for organizing this, and I know some of the workers didn't sleep last night to making this big success. So my congratulations. So I represent here the largest and the most top body of the businessmen in Pakistan, which is called the Federation of Pakistan Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So we have about 250 trade organizations as our members, which covers every industry, which covers every business sector, and which cover every business, whether it's small or big. We have membership of the big chambers, we have membership of the small chambers, we have membership of the women chambers, we have membership of the associations which are across the country. So we have a responsibility at our end to be the top level business organization to connect our business people to the world. So this is something which the governments do at their end, but the business have their own approach. I've worked for the government for 26 years, and now I'm representing a private organization. So as my colleagues mentioned here, the businessmen and the government cannot speak the same language. It is impossible, because the government works on the paper and the businessmen work in the field. So they have different languages. So this is very difficult for them to come on the same forum. The regulations, the bureaucracy, the red tapeism, it all obstructs the businesses, but we have to overcome slowly and slowly. Now, the question of the Honorable Moderator, that what Federation of Pakistan Chambers or the Pakistan doing to connect the business community of Pakistan to the external world. So my presence here reflects that we are eager to connect Pakistani businesses to the world, and that's why I'm here today on this forum, though it's a long and torturous way to come to Ufa, but still it's worth coming. So the Federation itself, apart from the FPCCI, my organization, we are members of the many international chamber organizations so that we can take our businessmen, connect them to the international forums. So I'll give you some examples. We are member of the Confederation of Asia Federation of Chambers of Commerce, the CASI, which has 27 members, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Russia as well. Then we have the Economic Cooperation, where we are connected with the Central Asia. Pakistan, Iran, Turkey are the key members. And then we have Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and all these countries. Then we have another regional cooperation called SAARC, where politically we are not that much comfortable with each other. It includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Afghanistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka. Some of the countries we are not politically very comfortable with each other. But the point which was mentioned here about how the business speaks different languages, we have a SAARC sticker, a SAARC visa sticker. Though it's very hard for a normal person to get a visa for India, or a Pakistani person to get a visa for India or Bangladesh, vice versa, but the businessmen, they can have a SAARC sticker which allows them to travel freely to all these countries. So this is what is more important, to integrate the countries, to bring the regional economies together, that we should ease the level of interaction. The ease of level of interaction is very important. The government has to bring down the regulations, all the obstacles which are hindering the businesses. So this is one example which I'm giving you, and we are trying it for the same at the ECO level, at the other levels. So I would propose at the SCO level, if this can be considered, so that there is more interaction between the business communities, and that's how we can expand the trade. So Pakistan is doing that at all levels, what we can do. You know, our country was ravaged by terrorism for the last 40 years, and luckily and fortunately we are coming out of it. And now we are an emerging economy, and people are coming there, people are investing there. We have a lot of investment opportunities for infrastructure, especially. We have untapped mineral resources, we have untapped petroleum resources, we have untapped gas resources, so people can come and invest. And in return, we have a lot to offer to the world. Textile is our main industry. Textile is the key. 60% of our exports depend on textiles because we are the cotton producing countries. Then for the Russian and the Central Asian market, we have leather. With the high class leather we export to the world. So that is one thing. We are one of the #1 producers of the instruments, medical instruments for the surgery. We are the football producers, and the World Cup played in Russia the football was made jointly with Pakistan and China. So the sports goods is the pride of Pakistan's products. So this is what we can offer and what we can gain from you. My colleagues have spoken about, he spoke about a credit card facility for the small enterprises, and somebody spoke about the sheriff, businessman sheriff here. So, and some other ideas came up. So these are the ideas where when we get to know each other. When we gather at these forums, we can develop ideas, we can get more things done, and especially for the small SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, it's difficult to interact for them. Their capacity, their limitation. So these forums, they can provide them with a lot of opportunities, which is a great job. So I'm here. If anybody is interested in Pakistan, I'm after the forum, can speak to me. And we are also organizing the same in Pakistan. In the mid-November, we are having a forum for the Islamic countries, which 57 chambers is our member. They are having their meeting in Karachi. And at the same time, we are connecting them with the economic cooperation, where 7 countries are from the Central Asia, apart from Pakistan and Turkey. So we are putting them together in November in Pakistan so that there could be more business activities, more regional activities. And as you know, Pakistan is opening up with China. We have an excellent trade. We have excellent relations with them. One Belt, One Road Forum, Pakistan's China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the main component of that, which is connecting China and the Central Asia to the Middle East and the warm waters in the Arabian Sea. So a lot of opportunities are coming up. So I hope that such forums will provide us more opportunities, and we at the FPCCI, we are trying our best to connect Pakistan to the more regional countries, especially with Russia. We want to develop more relations with the Central Asian republics. We want to have more relations. Africa is our target because our most trade was focused on USA and the Western countries. So once again, thank you very much for this opportunity, and you're welcome for any questions if you have.
Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I think what I would leave with is being a small business owner, or, sorry, let me take this off, I don't want to hear myself. A small business owner or a medium-sized business owner, it's not localized. That all of these ideas and conversations and the things that we talked about today is really something that's going to affect the world globally. And so I'm very excited to see, even though there may be some negative connotations or positive connotations, and there's ideas that may or may not happen, I definitely believe that this is the best time anyone could be an entrepreneur. And with all the things that we've talked about, I feel confident that they're going to be supported in their endeavors of opening up businesses, small and medium and big. So for that young girl or that young lady or that mother that may have been out of the workforce and not able to work, I feel confident that those people will be able to take whatever dream or idea that they have, and they'll be able to realize it in this world because of these ideas. So thank you. And thank you again, Russia, for having me. This has been a wonderful time, and I look forward to seeing more of Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your See you once again. Спасибо.